Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back once again. I am Matthew. Welcome to Watty's channel. Today's episode, we are returning to the WWF Hasbro review videos. So we are currently on Series 5, which was the first release of 1993. So as you guys remember, just to backtrack a little bit, Series 1 was a 1990 release. Series 2, 1991. That was the last of the individual yearly releases. In 1992, they doubled up with Series 3 and 4. And then in 1993, you had 5 through 7. And then finally concluding with Series 8 through 11 in 1994. So, Series 5 is the last series that you will find double-digit figures. So, Series 1 through 3... you constantly had just a plethora of different individual figures released. 12 figures, 15 figures, 14 if you don't count the re-release of Smash in Series 2. Another 12 figures in Series 3. Brought it down to 8 figures in Series 4 before coming back up to another big release of 5 figures in Series 5. So, even though there are a lot of really phenomenal figures out of Series 5, oddly enough, I kind of also feel like, as much as I love the figures, I also feel like they're also some of the weakest in the series. Which kind of doesn't make sense, because how do you find some of your favorite figures in the series, but also considered to be the weakest? I think it's mostly with not only the participants, the characters that were released in this series, but yeah, let's just dive in with the first set of action figures. So, I am going to start off with Virgil. Now, Virgil comes with Bodyguard Bash, and just an absolute perfect card. And, you know, Virgil, obviously, as the bodyguard of the $1 Million Man. I mean, $1 Million Man basically talked down and treated this man like dirt. Ted DiBiase really played, you know, the bad guy role to extreme levels, and that was pretty amazing. But you know, Virgil always the loyal bodyguard until one day he just simply couldn't take it anymore and ended up crushing the $1 Million belt over his head. And I'm trying to think. I do believe in one of their battles, IRS or actually Virgil did defeat $1 Million Man for the belt, but maybe it was like recaptured again. I'd have to look that up. It's been a while. But this is the carded figure for Virgil. Here's the thing. I'm not always a huge fan of the arm punching motion, simply because I hate that they always put like these little holes in the arm, where the action feature can obviously do what it's got to do. But the problem is, you've got that opening in the arm, which damages the arm, the display of the figure. You've got like this dislocation, which is like I'm not a huge fan of. I've talked about it with figures like Billy Gunn in series. Well, I will be talking about Billy Gunn in Series 11. You talk about Jake Roberts in Series 1. There are a number of figures that do come with that arm punching motion. Series 6, you're going to see Tito Santana being another such example in this series with Hulk Hogan, etc. It's not the worst pose. Papa Shango in next series is another one. But, I don't know. I think Papa Shango is really the only figure that pose really works for. With Virgil, you know what? The way that his arms are a little bit smaller in there, I think it does work for this figure pretty well. Even though he's got a very simple kind of like boxer uniform to him, the overall look is high quality. I love the way that the figure glosses, and it's just an overall fun figure. And it's kind of weird that Virgil, he's not exactly the most beloved WWF wrestler of all time. I always enjoyed him as a kid, and just kind of looking at his figures and rehashing some of the things that he participated in. I thought he was a really fun character, so I'm obviously one of those few minorities who probably still truly enjoyed him as a character, and really proud that he got an action figure. I heard a lot of people complain about this figure, that he didn't deserve one. Nah, I disagree. I think it's a beauty. Is it one of my favorites? Yes and no. It's an awesome figure I love, but could I put it really high on my list of favorites? That I cannot. So that is Virgil coming in with the first of 10 figures. Next up is Sid Justice. You already know the Sid Vicious Galoob is my all-time favorite wrestling action figure, period. It is my George Washington of action figures. Sid Justice, Hasbro kept it going strong, producing another truly amazing action figure for the character. And he does come with the power bomb. So essentially his feature, just like so many others, it's just your little gorilla press. And, Hulk Hogan had the gorilla press in Series 1. And so every time I see this action feature, it's just simply gorilla press. And how does this one differ from some of the others? A lot of these figures with the open hand, British Bulldog, Series 1 Hogan, Series 2 Ultimate Warrior, etc. With this type of pose, this is, I always call this one gorilla press. So in 1992, as we know, Hulk Hogan just won your 1990 and 1991 Royal Rumbles. He was on pace to repeat again in 1992. He was at the ropes. He was getting ready to throw someone out. Sid Justice, who was basically kind of like partners or friends with Hogan, lifts him up, tosses him out. Hogan's eliminated. Hogan's all like, mad because he just got tossed out, and hey, you just cost me the heavyweight championship. From 1992, Ric Flair came in that match at second place, and he ended up staying in the entire time and winning the Royal Rumble, and was credited as the new heavyweight champion. And so, obviously at that point, things changed between Hogan and Sid Justice. And Hogan and Sid Justice were one of the main highlights of WrestleMania 8. Hogan does his thing, drops the leg on him, pins him. A lot of people didn't like the match. From what I can recall, it was fun. I do have that WrestleMania tape. I will watch it eventually. WrestleMania 8 was also key. You know what? I'll talk about that later. Because I do have a character to talk about. But the wrestling figure from Sid Justice, definitely another strong and incredible piece. And, very, for the most part, relatively simple. Nothing super flashy. But, you know what? Again, his Sid Vicious Galoob figure was nothing flashy, but it still remains the best of the line and the best wrestling action figure. So, Sid Justice. So the last video, 8 figures from Series 4, took me about 40 minutes. With 10 figures, I'm going to try and go through this a little bit more quickly because I don't want to run 50 minutes to 1 hour. So I'm trying to be liberal with you guys' time per usual. The next figure is the third, or technically fourth, release of Macho Man. So Macho Man, as you know, had a series release in Series 1. He was released as Macho King in Series 2. And in Series 3, that same exact figure was re-released, except his trunks read Macho Man. So you can count that as 2 figures, you can count that as 1 figure, however you like. If I say each individual series was its own figure, then this would be the 4th release. So Macho Man and it's Macho Man and Hulk Hogan. They're really the only 2 characters in the Hasbro line who produced 4 action figures during the 11 different series. This Macho Man, it could be the best of the Macho Man figures, or it's the worst. There's no in between with this one. I kind of feel like this Macho Man figure is more of a commemorative piece. So this one comes with Savage Slam. Can I look at the background here? And I don't even have a working action on this figure. So, oddly enough, as all the Macho Man Series 5 figures I've sold, normally I just, I I look at what I have and I just choose the best figure for my personal collection. But yeah, this one, no working feature on this one. Sorry. That's okay. I consider the MOC card, to be my mint figure, so the loose figures really don't have to be mint. But yeah, I am going to have to swap this one out because this one's kind of jacked all around. But I've said before, Macho Man always comes down the aisle with like these, luscious robes or jackets and whatnot. And this is a great looking figure, but to me it is a commemorative piece. With the first 3 series Macho Man figures, why would you choose to play with this one when any of those other figures are truly remarkable? Great fighting poses, their ring gear. Again, I don't care that he's clothed. That's awesome accessories and whatnot. Additional display. But you take that and you throw in the Brutus Beefcake Series 1 fingers. There's a lot to like about this figure, but there's also a lot to hate about this figure. And this is just, it's like a Hulk Hogan Series 2. Kind of like a commemorative piece. It looks nice on the shelf, but it's something that you would never play with in a million years when you have all of these alternatives that just do a much more thorough job. And, back to the fused legs, this one doesn't really tip over on me, so this one is obviously better than some of the other figures. The way that his feet are situated are a little bit more, kind of like your military while standing at attention or something. The way the toes are posed, so it's a little bit better for standing and posing ability. This outfit, I think this is the exact same outfit he wore. I believe it was Independence Day. So, Independence Day, July 4th, 1993. And I don't remember the ship name, but I constantly talk about it, and it has to do with the Yokozuna body slam competition. And Macho Man is immensely strong. He tried to lift Yokozuna up and couldn't even get him, couldn't even lift a foot, I don't think. In that same tournament, the only guy at the time whoever lifted Yokozuna up was Kona Crush. And, he got him up off the ground pretty high, but he just couldn't finish him off. And, of course, later on, once we get into Series 8 and start talking about the Narcissus Lex Luger, we'll bring that up again and discuss that situation. Probably both the Yokozuna and the Lex in Series 8 when that time comes. I didn't even know Randy Savage was still alive up until like 2011, I want to say, maybe 2010. He was actually in a car accident that ended his life. I hadn't heard anything from or about Randy Savage in such a long time. And then, of course, within the last couple years or so, when I learned about his death, I thought he actually was one of those guys who died, far earlier. Like when Spider-Man came out in 2002, I believe that was his last feature film that he was part of. And I hadn't heard anything from him since then. I thought he actually died like around 2003, 2004. I thought he had been gone a lot longer. So hearing that he actually lived, close to a decade longer than what I originally thought, I mean, I'm glad for that, that extra time that he got to spend on the earth, but my number 3 all-time favorite wrestler, and it's just sad that there are just certain people that, certain heroes that you grew up watching and idolizing that you're never going to get the opportunity to meet. Just tell them thank you. What they meant to you in life. So, but that is Macho Man. Next up, the 4th and final figure of the Hasbro series or Hasbro line is Hulk Hogan. This is the first Hulk Hogan without clothing, and probably majority of people out there prefer this one. Either this one or Series 3. I would hope that they would choose the Series 3 because it's 1,000 times better figure, but you can't deny that the Series 5 Hogan still holds its own special place as well. So this particular Hulk Hogan comes with Hulkster Slam, and again, he's just another one of those arm-punching figures. So without clothing, this is his in-ring gear, just trunks and boots. So that gives a great playability for the figure, when you're wanting to kind of go back to, how he actually wrestled in the ring. Not many people actually wear clothing in the ring, so for those who want to use these as, use their imagination as real life wrestlers, whatnot, I can understand the appeal to it, but I still prefer Series 3 nonetheless. Good looking figure, probably about a $30 to $40 figure overall. Oh shoot, that's one thing that I kind of been thinking about. In a lot of my videos, I caught myself doing this in the Series 4 review, and I've been trying to stop, but I really can't help it. So I catch myself constantly giving like estimated prices of figures, or I'll talk about like what I paid for figures. And it's kind of odd because every time I watch any type of review, or somebody talk about new acquisitions or whatnot, they'll mention the thing that they acquired, but they won't really ever talk about a price that they paid on it. More times than not, they don't. And I kind of understand where they're coming from. I kind of feel like it's the same way in the workplace. If you've got a job and your fellow employee has the exact same job title, and you got doing the exact same work, and he's making $24 an hour and you're making $21 an hour, yeah, there might be some resentment there. And your production may not be as high because you're feeling undervalued or whatnot, or underpaid. So I understand on occasion, not talking about how much you're earning in the workplace. Got it. But like when it comes to these figures, I enjoy being able to talk about like what I paid for certain figures, or what the estimated value is nowadays. Reason being, there are a lot of collectors out there, and I'm sure these videos could do a lot of justice for those who are looking to acquire certain figures. If you want a loose Hulk Hogan and someone's selling it for $85, hey, you reach out to me, hey man, I got this Hogan I want. They're offering me $85 for it. Is it a fair price? I'm like, look, nowadays you probably get this for, depending on condition, somewhere between $20 to $40. High note 45. So I like the ability to kind of help people and make the right decisions. So that's always special to me. And that's another reason why I talk about the prices that I pay on certain items. If that bothers anybody, I don't know. No one's really said that it's disparaging or anything, but just kind of give you an update as to why I like to include prices, my rationale behind it. Hulk Hogan, we just talked about Sid Vicious and WrestleMania 8. Man, Hulk Hogan's just all over the place. I mean, there's really nothing you can't find about him. He really is the people's champion. The greatest champion of all time. You could take away Ric Flair's 20 heavyweight championships, whatever. Hulk Hogan is always the man in any child's childhood. You didn't even have to be a Hulk Hogan fan and to still appreciate his illustrious career. No one could really influence or entice an audience the way that Hulk Hogan does or has throughout his career. I mean, back-to-back Royal Rumble champion. Outside of Shawn Michaels, I can't think of anyone else that's done that. I'm sure there's probably been others, but those are obviously the first two and only two that come to mind. Multiple heavyweight champion. I don't know if he was ever tag team champion. I doubt it. Occasionally you see him team up with like 4 Mega Powers with Randy Savage, or you'd see him tag team with Brutus from Mega Maniacs, or you put like these little squash matches with him and like Ricky Steamboat tag teaming, for example. But the man really worked well with anybody. But it's just because he is, the Michael Jordan of wrestlers. So you really have any secondary character would have done just fine alongside him. The man was pretty much apparent in any Royal Rumble or WrestleMania type match you could think of. Trying to think. WrestleMania 3, I definitely know he was there because the infamous Andre the Giant match in '87. I know he was with Sergeant Slaughter in WrestleMania 7, Sid Vicious in WrestleMania 8. I'm trying to think. Was it Was it Ultimate Warrior in WrestleMania 6 and Randy Savage in WrestleMania 5? Or do I got that backwards? But I'm almost positive those were part of the WrestleMania he was participated in. Moving to WCW, I just find it hilarious that a multi-billionaire like Vince McMahon wouldn't pay Hulk Hogan everything that he wanted to keep him as part of the company and allow him to go to WCW, which actually, for a period of like a year or two, WCW was actually outperforming WWF. And because you had guys like Diesel and Razor Ramon and 1-2-3 Kid and Hogan all participating in WCW. Elizabeth was over there at Mean Gene transition. Randy Savage, Lex Luger came back. So it's like, man, the WCW was really tearing it up for a while. And Hogan was a key piece to that. I mean, if you're the, who was it, Mike Trout? If you're the Anaheim Angels and you're the greatest player in the game and Mike Trout, you're going to pay him $400 million, even though that's ludicrous money, because you want him to be part of your team forever. You know, someone like Hulk Hogan, he should have gotten the same thing. And think about it. With movies and T-shirts, figurines, what he brought in for merchandise alone would have probably more than made up for any profits lost by overpaying. Oh, speaking of that, WrestleMania 8. So I talked about Hogan and Sid Vicious, but there was actually I don't remember who was champion. I want to say Randy Savage, but I'm almost positive I'm wrong. But Ric Flair and Randy Savage was also the second, major event in that tournament or in that pay-per-view event. They actually had the heavyweight championship match, so you would think it would be the premier match, but anything featuring Hogan is going to top anything else. All right, that is 4 figures, and we are at 22 minutes. I could either do 5 figures and stop and break it down into 2 pieces, or I could do straight through 10 figures, 1 video. Well, let's see how far I can get along. Next figure we're looking at is the Mountie. Jacques Rougeau, Mountie, and he had this really awesome shock stick, and sometimes through the radios or whatnot, you'd have like this little electrocution sound anytime he'd come in and try shocking someone. To me, it really is a great figure. Again, another Canadian policeman, and the story I heard about the Mountie, where essentially the Dynamite Kid really hated his guts and came in and socked him. I'm remembering it backwards. The Mountie, who was always getting harassed by Dynamite Kid, kind of like filled what did he do? Filled a sock with coins or something. Oh man, I heard that story a while back, and it was like such a crazy story. And man, I'm trying to think about how it went. But whatever he used something to absolutely destroy, just tear Dynamite Kid's face up. Tore out. He probably broke some teeth. Man was bloody as heck. Kind of hearing about how much of an asshole Dynamite Kid was in the locker room, and how he treated Jacques Rougeau, I could kind of understand, the need to do that, but I mean, you would just think, professionalism on both ends. But, man, at least you got Bad News Brown there kind of standing up for for Dynamite, so they had a great relationship. But Mountie and Dynamite Kid just wasn't there. Mountie, who was a temporary Intercontinental Champion. He's one of those guys, probably right alongside Marty Jannetty, of guys who are Intercontinental Champions that nobody ever remembers were champions. But the overall figure is absolutely remarkable. Again, I love the figures that are clothed. I mean, it's added display. Trying to think. So Papa Shango in Series 6, obviously. Undertaker in Series 4. And I think the Mountie here in Series 5, if I'm not mistaken, I think that's it off the top of my head. The only figures that actually have the built-on hats. Would I have liked these hats more if they were removable? I don't think so. I think they work beautifully, built into the head. Because let's be honest, as kids, we would have lost them anyways. As a child, I haven't been mentioning it in this video. As a kid, we had a ton of Series 1 and Series 2 figures. Didn't even know anything from Series 3 existed. Not until, as an adult collector. In Series 4, we had 3 figures. In Series 5 onward, nothing. We didn't even know that these figures existed. So, getting these for the first time, over the last couple years, have been absolutely amazing because it kind of does bring you back to childhood and really allows you to reflect on those characters you grew up watching and those figures that you had from childhood. Mountie is just another solid figure that I absolutely love. Alright, next one up. Warlord. I know the LJN Warlord with like the blue and black display around the eyes is probably going to be the most popular with most people. That Warlord, him coming into like the 1989 Royal Rumble, he's in there for like 2 seconds and then Hulk Hogan clotheslines him over the ropes. And I've already talked about how many times I despise people that are eliminated like that. It drives me nuts. Anything less than 10 minutes is an absolute waste of an appearance. And when you're eliminated that quickly, I'm talking about within seconds or within the first couple minutes, it just drives me crazy. I didn't really remember that version of the Warlord too well. Very minuscule. But this Warlord right here, again, this is the Warlord from childhood. This is the one I know best. And just another absolutely beautiful figure. So, the only downside, I would say, about this particular Warlord, get his little Warlord staff in there. It would be nice if he had like some hands that could actually, where the staff could just, slide right in there. But, it's an awesome piece, but the problem is, unless you're holding it stationary for display, you just kind of like rest in his hands. You can't really hold it any particular way. This figure, he's kind of like leaning back like this a little bit. But, with like so many other figures, the arms out. Just a little slamming motion. And he has the Warlord Wham. I don't even know how you get Wham out of that. And I missed the Mountie mash. Warlord Wham. Absolutely gorgeous figure. The way that his arms are out like that, I don't know. Not a huge fan of that. It looks kind of like too much of an alien. So that doesn't do it for me all that much. I can deal with the hands if the overall arm situation was a little bit better. But with the mask and the chest protector and all the graphics on the trunks and boots, this is a good 7 out of 10 figure, if not better. It's a very playable figure, and like all Hasbro, or majority of Hasbro are, so that's something to really enjoy. Powers of Pain with the Barbarian. Unfortunately, I really don't have a lot of backstories or anything like that when it comes to Warlord. I really don't know too much about Powers of Pain or Warlord in particular, unfortunately. Of course, I watched him as a kid, but, I don't know too many people who can remember things that they saw when they're 8 years old or whatnot. So, but that is Warlord, and again, another beauty. Next one up, Erwin R. Shyster, or real name, Mike Rotunda. Rotundo, I don't know. I've heard it both ways. But IRS. He came at WWF. He was supposed to be like this, tax accountant or something, or actually work for Internal Revenue Service. Trying to go after tax frauds and all that. So that was like his gimmick in WWF. So just an absolutely perfect character that would blend in and mesh well with the $1 Million Man, and of course, creating Money Incorporated was bound to happen sooner than later. And then you had what was it? WrestleMania 8 with the what was it? Money Inc. versus Earthquake and Typhoon. I don't know I can't remember if Natural Disasters won that match or not. Because it was such a long time ago, and I haven't really thought about that in forever. I'm thinking that maybe Natural Disasters won by countout or disqualification or something. Again, I actually do have the WrestleMania 8 tape, and I could always go back and watch it and, kind of like refresh memories and stuff. But again, it was one of those things that were such a long period ago. So IRS, again, head sculpt I really like. This is obviously one of the most cartoony figures that you would see. And I know a lot of Hasbros are classified as cartoonish or cartoony in appearance. But I think this is really one of those that really fall under that mold. And, his action, which is called Right Off Slam. And you're not slamming anybody. I mean, it's just simply like what the Series 2 $1 Million Man does with the stomp. So, or a Series 10, El Gigante, Giant Gonzalez figure with a little stomp. So, I don't know why they call the stomping motion a slam. You're not slamming anybody. But if you were to get rid of the whole waist thing that they got going on and, give them real legs and not this phony thing, this would be a even better figure. I really enjoy it, but because of, that little big upper level and small legs, large torso, it just kind of brings down the overall impactfulness of this figure. I still enjoy it, no doubt. It's just not one of my pristine favorites. I was watching this YouTube video probably a few months ago, and I think it was like a 25-year reunion or a 25-year anniversary of Raw or something. Now, I don't remember when Raw came out. If I had to guess, I'd say 1992 or 1993. So, for sake of argument, let's say Raw came out in 93. Then, 25 years later, 2018. And you had all of these, stablemates from the early 90s participating in this Royal Rumble or Battle Royal. And it had to be a Royal Rumble because I'm trying to think. The last thing I can remember is IRS being the last one in the ring. And then out comes Ted DiBiase. He steps in, he kind of hands him a suitcase. They shake hands, and IRS jumps over the ropes. And $1 Million Man is crowned as, the Rumble champion. So again, I don't know if it was a Battle Royal because, he wasn't in there already. I don't know. You guys, if you get the opportunity, I would recommend see if you can find it because it seemed fun and whatnot. Especially if you could find the whole entire match. I saw just a small 2 or 3 minute clip, so it could have been a Royal Rumble. I don't remember. But let's be honest, they weren't making 50-something-year-old Ted DiBiase Royal Rumble champion. Because Royal Rumble champions always go on to, to face the heavyweight champion at WrestleMania, so that wouldn't have been the case. But IRS is the next figure in the line. The next one up is the model Rick Martel. So, 1991, Rick Martel enters the Royal Rumble, and I don't remember where he came in at. But I believe at that time he had the longest tenured in-ring appearance at a Royal Rumble of somewhere around 59 minutes or something. Just surpassing the 52 minutes or so that Ted DiBiase had the year before. And, he held that for a few years until someone eventually surpassed his record. And, the $1 Million... or the... Rick Martel. Ugh. Brain funk. Couldn't remember his name. The Rick Martel figure, he's just another Macho Man figure from Series 1. I mean, literally the exact same figure, again, popping off the head. And this is a much easier figure to customize or to change for Hasbro, because with $1 million or with Macho Man, all he had was just the plain trunks. You just change in the orange with stars to pink. Putting a little pink and white on the bottom, change that up from the yellow. It's alright. And, trying to look at the other the other figure. But it also has one of my favorite poses. Overall look of the figure is absolutely fantastic. And he comes with the Arrogance Splash. No difference. I mean, it doesn't do it. The action is stiff. But basically, just like the other figures, where they just raise it up and it just pops back down. So this is a nice figure as far as color. It's nearly mint. And the head is perfect. I mean, like I said, there's like a little black tick on his left knee pad. Other than that, this looks like a mint figure. But because the action isn't working, it can't be classified as mint. Beautiful looking figure. Definitely one of those key pieces that if you're building a roster of playable Hasbros or the best playable Hasbros, this is one of the most elite figures that you want to add to your roster. And Tito Santana, tag team partner in the 80s with Strikeforce. Who else was he with? He was with Tom Zenk, formerly Can-Am Express. So, the man's had an illustrious career. AWA wrestler, worked for WWF on numerous occasions, and turning into the model Rick Martel. I believe Sherry Martel was his manager. And again, don't quote me on that. I could be wrong. And I think the whole deal was, at the time, she was also managing Shawn Michaels. And because they were both have this little pretty boy gimmick going on, they once had a match, and I guess the regulation stipulated that they weren't supposed to hit each other in the face because it wasn't supposed to mess up their good looks or whatnot. I'm like, yeah, that's pretty lame. And of course, Arrogance spray bottle is just a little custom. This one comes from David Garland on Etsy. 4 Left 3D Creations. He does a really great job with this. So, yeah. Rick Martel. Next one up, Jim the Anvil Neidhart, who comes with Anvil Flattener. I gotta be honest, the Jim Neidhart figure, not because of the right extended arm, but just the overall figure, I think this could be one of my most hated figures from the Hasbro line. Is he on my top 10 list of worst Hasbros? Not even close. It actually looks like a solid figure, but it has its issues. Like the feet, for example, kind of like Roddy Piper with a little rocking chair. So, does he stand on his own pretty well? Yes. Does he tip over sometimes? Not necessarily. If you have one that's, pretty solid, positioning. But because of the rocking chair, it doesn't give you the perfect stance, You always got to be conscientious of it falling over, knocking over your other figures while on display. The whole checkered look and everything, I kind of like that. Not kind of like a little race car checkers and whatnot. That's not bad. This was a time frame when he tagged with Owen Hart to form the Hart Foundation or the new foundation. But again, when Owen Hart was with like Coco Beware as High Energy, they basically had very similar color schemes and whatnot. So the right extended arm, it's not the worst pose ever. I would prefer something different, but at least he does have a perfect working action. So that's something to take away from this. When you look at this figure, even the LJN, for whatever reason, they always make Jim Neidhart look as if he's like not slim, but like he's relatively good shape or whatnot. And maybe at one point he was, but for everything I've seen, for everything I can remember about Jim Neidhart, the man was like crazy overweight. I'm not talking 500 pounds overweight, but he had a beer gut on him, and a pretty hefty guy. Definitely not somebody you want to be squashed by, but so I can understand that aspect. Was he the most talented in-ring athlete ever? I don't remember him being that good. Does he deserve a figure? Sure, why not? But I don't have this one on my top 10 least favorite, but I do think that this would probably be on a top 20 list if I had to create one. Where I'd put him, I don't know. That's just talk right now. So if I actually did physically create a list, for all I know, he could be, I don't know, working, if you say number 1 is the worst figure, he could be like number 50 for all I know. Which would put him like right in the middle, right slap in the middle of all the figures. The 94 different releases. So, Jim Neidhart. And last but not least, the 10th and final release, Steve Keirn's Skinner. And again, the only thing I could ever remember about this character was him coming in the ring with like black drip or something. I don't know if he was like, if he was smoking, eating chewing tobacco or something, but that crap was disgusting. He comes with a Gator Breaker. I don't really have a lot of memories of Skinner. But what did I say in the very first video, Series 1, Part 1? The good thing about Hasbro is because this is a time that I was watching wrestling, I may not have the best memories of all the characters, but I do remember watching every single one of them. So every single action figure in this line, I remember the characters. Skinner is another one of those absolutely perfect figures. Just an absolutely phenomenal look. Another one of those little built-on hat accessories. Again, a very simple pose. Just like your, basically he's just a repeat of the Series 3 Ultimate Warrior. And we all know Ultimate Warrior is a perfect figure. I could not find room to put Skinner on my top 10 favorite figures, but I think he'd easily be on the top 15. Here's the funny thing about this figure. This is easily like a $35 to $50, well maybe not 50, but I think a good $40 would be a fair value on this figure. Problem is, I guess so many people nowadays own the figure, so nobody's willing to pay that. What do I say? I have all these duplicates. Sometimes I'll purchase bundles, and I'm only looking for like 1 or 2 figures out of it. And so I end up with all these extra figures. So when I try to resell them, I just try to sell just so I can get my money's worth out of it. And I don't really ever try to sell in order to like turn like massive profits or anything. And I might put it up for $20 and get no views, which is a shame because it's a perfect figure. I mean, well worth $20, no doubt. Yeah, I mean, Steve Keirn, right there with Stan Lane and the Fabulous Ones, back with AWA days. Steve Keirn, I believe, was the first replacement for Matt Bourne's Doink. And there was a match where Matt Osborne, a.k.a. Matt Bourne, was doing battle against Kona Crush. And you had the second Doink kind of come out and basically kind of tag team Crush. And then you saw the two Doinks kind of mimicking each other, kind of like, as if they were, miming or looking at each other in the mirror or something. Because of Matt Bourne's, drug use and all that, and anger problems and stuff like that, I think that was writing on the wall saying that he was going to be replaced as Doink. And he really loved that figure. Steve Keirn, I, as a kid, never knew that there were multiple Doinks. Not just multiple, and there wasn't just 2 Doinks. I mean, like I said, there were like 3 Doinks. So, and that doesn't include Dink. I used to love Dink as a kid, man. That guy, it was like watching Mini-Me. Dr. Evil with Mini-Me or whatnot. But Steve Keirn, excellent career, regardless of how you look at him. Fabulous Ones in AWA, Doink the Clown, Skinner. The man played some really important roles throughout. And this is obviously someone I wish I had a lot more knowledge of, but I think with Steve Keirn, it's mostly just the bare minimum. Skinner. So that does make up the 10 figures from the 1993 release of Series 5. The next video, of course, we will dive into Series 6. Series 6 only has 6 figures. A much shorter video, should hover around 30 minutes. I am going to close the video here, guys. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave me a comment. And if there's any things that I said that I wasn't familiar with, or if you can provide more details. I love history and everything, so I always love hearing you guys feedback and everything of certain events that happened. It always benefits me as much as anything. So thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video. Goodbye, everybody.